Bulavinaka. My name is Elisa Mbetawanga, and this presentation is a component of investigating and communicating geographically in the Environmental Impact Assessment course I am taking as part of my MSc program on biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. The study area of this video will be the Antelope Avenue housing block, which is located in Belmopan city, the capital city of Belize, in Cayo district. Antelope Avenue is an urban housing block located close to the central business district and the main shopping centers and recreational facilities, and is also part of the Las Flores urban area, which is quite densely populated. More and more people are choosing to live in cities over rural areas or suburbs. Belmopan population is no exception. This urban drift has placed considerable demands on land use, especially in terms of residential needs. This parcel of land, which was once a forest, was then cleared to allow for housing development. The area was divided into 20 rectangular 20 by 30 meter lots and sold for private ownership by residents. Obtaining private ownership in this way gave the owners rights to do as they please with the environment within their properties. The design and the size of their houses, as well as the activities within the boundaries, became their exclusive rights. However, the clearance of this forest area has also meant removal of carbon sinks and consequent destruction of species habitats of a variety of birds, snakes, iguanas, monkeys, foxes, and other wildlife. Now that we have covered the driving force behind the transition of landscape from this to this video is now going to focus on the biophysical component of the biosphere in terms of biodiversity. As previously mentioned, clearing of forest had meant loss of habitats for a variety of wildlife. This is expected to have affected the ecological functions of the ecosystem by alterations to the complexity of its food web. Most wildlife have disappeared, and sadly, with them go their ecological functions. These left gaps that have in some instances been filled in by human interventions. Some house owners, like this one, have tried to eradicate grass in their lawn by covering the whole compound with gravel. This is to restrict overgrowth of grass and to save them the trouble of cutting it, and also it's a way of keeping away mosquitoes. To some extent, this is considered art by humans. However, this greatly reduces the biodiversity as butterflies, grasshoppers, and insects totally lose habitats. Flower gardens are planted more as decorative measures, but at the same time, they mitigate this effect by providing habitat for these organisms. Meanwhile, small-scale use of chemical fertilizer in these home gardens must be acknowledged, and such also affect organisms and animals in the ecosystems, while runoffs into the drains affect frogs and organisms that live there. Not all of these plants in the block were planted by humans. In fact, most grew from seeds blown in by the wind or scattered by the birds. As seen in this picture, we have fruit trees, mango trees, avocado trees, soursop, coconut trees, and a lime tree. These were planted by men, mostly for human consumption and for the shade. However, intentional or not, this has also given the opportunity for birds to nest and eat of the fruits. In the process, Bird droppings fertilize the soil organically while dispersing seeds in the same instances. The establishment of this housing area also meant supply of basic amenities like water and electricity. This meant the digging of ground to lay pipes and cables, exposing decomposers and detrivores like earthworms to birds. While cables and pipes run underground, power lines are held above the ground by posts. In the absence of the forest, these power lines have become crossroads for squirrels and a resting alternative branch for birds where they sit and communicate. However, there is risk of accidents from electric shock for these bird species. In the same development and serving the needs of the new housing community, streetlights are placed along the roads to provide light for movement within the community. These lights are also aid in preventing or detecting crimes like burglary and theft. Meanwhile, the lights unfortunately pose disturbances to night wildlife. Interestingly, an artificial pond was created by a resident of the block, Mr. Curtis, at the back of his house. This was intended for his dogs. A night cam attached to the tree beside it has been capturing shots of wildlife crowding the pond for a drink. During the day, different species of birds have been spotted around the pond. These birds, even though I will not attempt to name them, are the normal ones sighted around the block, in the trees, on the power lines, etc. An iguana was also among the shots captured by this night cam. A few night shots showed this animal, which has been subject of debate among few of us neighbors. Mr. Curtis, the property owner, says it is an opossum, while my personal take on it was that it was a rat. Not that I would know the difference from the distance. Regardless, this indicates there are wildlife in the vicinity, and thus the food web complexity may still be intact. Cats were also captured in the shots. This is a top predator in this neighborhood, normally feeding on rats, opossums, squirrels, etc. However, they are mostly domesticated, just like dogs. The only dogs found in the area are pets, domesticated dogs, while there are very few stray dogs around. Meanwhile, it must be acknowledged that houses go through development stages as and when the property owners see fit. Apart from noise pollution, these construction works have implications for the environment in several ways. As seen in this picture, patches of grass area had been used to mix cement or concrete. This has left such residues on the ground that solidifies and block grass and vegetation growth. This in turn affects organisms, insects, and other biotic matters that live on the spot. When it rains, these sediments are washed into the drains, causing more sedimentation and blockages. Talking about drains, these have been created along the boundaries of the housing block to meet requirements for health and safety, and also as a mitigation against floods. This has also become habitat for frogs, tadpoles, earthworms, and other microorganisms that live in water. However, poor maintenance of these drains have resulted in blockages. Coupled with pollution, this has resulted in a state of eutrophication and ultimately solidification of these sediments. This has produced a stench that has caused discomfort in the neighborhood. Meanwhile, because the drain is not privately owned by residents, Its maintenance is usually left to the municipal council. Residents feel there are people paid to maintain the drains, and as long as they have paid their rates, they do not need to get their hands dirty. On the same housekeeping issues, garbage bins are placed adjacent to houses along the street. This is to encourage proper disposal of garbage. While this helps the council workers collect and dispose of most of the household waste, a lot more garbage is seen around the block, polluting the area. However, these are seen within the privately owned properties. Therefore, it becomes a private business. Like human trails and shortcuts, motor vehicles compact the earth with its weight and power daily. This also weighs in heavily on the living organisms in its way. Amazingly, houses in this block do not only house humans. As seen here, these pigeons have helped themselves within this roof. Like domesticating cats and dogs, this proves how humans and nature can live in harmony. To satisfy its needs, human extracts from nature. And in supporting the sustainability of nature, human intervention is needed. Therefore, as much as human needs should remain priority, it must be acknowledged that it is only part of the web that connects all needs of all other species, and thus the interactions and interconnectedness of biophysical components should be properly understood. Thank you, and let's help protect our environment.